Hey, what's up guys? This is Nick from Nick Exposed. On this episode, we're going to talk about bulk loading. If you know me, if you follow me, you know that I bulk load all my own HP5. I shoot tons of HP5, so bulk loading this stuff really drastically cuts down the cost. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But then I'm going to cover some of the different things that I do that are a little bit different than some of the other videos that you might have seen online. So I just got some HP5 in today from B&H. Right now, it's $61 on B&H. So it bumped up a little bit. It used to be a little bit cheaper, but still, when I get about 20 rolls of film out of this, I'm still at right around $3 a roll, which is drastically cheaper than buying the individual rolls at your local shop on B&H or any of those things. They're typically anywhere from like $7 to $9 depending on where you're buying them. So saving quite a bit of money there. And I'm going to show you some other shortcuts that I do and some hacks that I do to really drop the cost even further. Some of the stuff you might even be able to get for free. So real quick, I'm using the Lloyd's Daylight bulk loader. You may have seen some other videos that are using the Watson loaders. Those are fantastic as well, but I prefer this one for a couple reasons. One is the Watson ones have those, it's like a gate that you have to open and close, and there's opportunities to scratch your film, there's opportunities to expose your film to light, and personally, I just like taking all those kind of risks off the table right off the get-go. And I know that the Watson loaders, they have some fail-safes built in and stuff like that, but in the back of my mind, I always thought that I was going to mess it up. So when I got this loader, I absolutely fell in love with it. I find it super simple to use, and I'm going to explain that here in a second. But if you do have one of those Watson loaders, you should probably check out Matt Day's video on bulk loading. I'm going to link to it up top here. He shows you how to load and use one of those bulk loaders. But we're going to stick with this guy today. We're going to stick with HP5. There's also Kentwood 400, Rolly RPX 400. There's all sorts of different cheaper films that you could get for $30, $40 a bulk roll. So when you really look at the cost savings that you're doing, bulk loading is really a great way to go, and it's not as intimidating as so many people make it out to be. So we're going to jump into an overhead view here in a second and kind of look at what it looks like to load this up and then start loading into the canisters. But real quick, a couple different things that you're going to need is obviously you're going to need a bulk loader and a 100-foot roll of film, but then also you're going to need some of these reloadable canisters. So a couple different variations that I have is there's these metal ones. These are typically by Colt. I think there's a couple other manufacturers out there, but the tops of these just pop right off, and then you can take the spool off, you tape onto the spool, you feed it back in, and then you load back into that. Then there's these plastic ones. These are made by various different manufacturers as well. These ones are great. These are the reloadable and reusable canisters. You can use these time and time again. And I find that I would probably suggest going with, if you're going to go between these two, I would go with the plastic ones. They don't seem like they're built that great, but actually they're surprisingly built extremely well. And I've used these over and over again, and these will last you a long time. But personally, my favorite way of going about it is actually using old recycled canisters that were never opened up. So I know a lot of you guys, when you develop and when you load in to the Patterson tank or whatever tank you're using, typically you'll take a like a bottle opener and pop the top off that way. But actually, I don't pop the tops off of these, and actually I get these. I have a whole, I don't know if you can see, I have a whole box of them right here that I get from the local lab. So the lab has professional grade like film processors, and the way that they load them in is they actually pull these out with what's called a leader retriever or a leader picker. And I'll probably show you how to use one of these in a second. I highly suggest getting one of these, even if it's just for developing film. I absolutely love this. I use this every single time that I develop film, and I'm going to show you here in a second what exactly this does. But they pull that leader out, and then they tape that leader down to a plastic sheet that gets fed into the machine, which pulls the film out of the canister, and then once it gets to the end of the roll, it just goes through and it cuts it right inside the machine and everything. So they have tons and tons of these that they just throw out otherwise. So I just ask them for that, and the nice thing is they actually have these, you can probably see here, it's about a, I don't know, quarter of an inch, half an inch sticking out of a leader that I could then tape to and then feed back into the canister, and I could bulk load that way. So I will say this, a little disclaimer right off the get-go, there is the possibility of there being maybe some debris on the felt of these things, so pulling it back in, you might get some scratches on the film. I have bulk loaded hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rolls of film and have never ever had that to be an issue. So as much as there is a possibility of that happening, there's also a possibility of that happening with these guys too. So there's never a all-time fail-safe. This is my preferred method, and 9 times out of 10, this is the method that I use, and I'm going to show you this method. I'll show you both of these methods when we go to the overhead camera. Another thing that you're going to need is scissors, tape. You're going to need some masking tape or some other way of labeling the film. And then you're going to need either a dark bag, so this is a bag that you could load the film in. If you do your own developing at home, you probably already have one of these. Otherwise, you could use your bathroom or anything that you have as a dark room. So a real quick tip is I actually use one of these giant curtains. And on the top of this curtain, it's an opaque curtain. On the top of it are these little rings. And I actually just put 2 screws over top of my bathroom door, and then I just hang this over top of it from the outside, tuck it in on the door jambs, and it does extremely well at cutting out all light going into the bathroom. So it's a quick way of transforming your bathroom into somewhat of a dark room. And the nice thing is I found that thing at like a thrift store for like $3, so you can find those curtains anywhere. It doesn't even have to look pretty. It just needs to be opaque that you can post up to the top of the door frame and then cover the door. So we're going to jump into the overhead view. We're going to go over what it looks like to open up one of these and load it into the bulk loader. So let's do that right. All right, so here we are with all the things that we're going to need. So I'm going to move these out of the way here for a second. Inside this box, so this is actually an old box, there's no film in here, but when you open this up, there's a dark bag, and the dark bag will have the film in it. And in the dark bag or in your dark room, you're going to take that film out. And I can't obviously open it up and show you what it will look like, but I taped this over, so it'll come out and it'll just be this giant spool, and it will be around one of these, so it'll be roughly about that size even. And there'll be a little piece of tape that's taped on to the side. You're going to go in there, you're going to pull off the piece of tape, and then you're going to have this flap that pops up. So if we look inside of our bulk loader here, you're going to actually, this will go on top of here. You're going to feel where your film opens up this way. This is going to go in here, and then you're going to feel this out and just kind of feed that right there, just like so. So it's going to go clockwise into the opening and then out, and then you could close that. So from here on out, this part going through the felt will block off the light going in here. So once you put this back on, once you have your bulk loader in this state, you could actually bring it out in the daylight, and you'll be set to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take the real film, go and load this in here in the dark room, and I'll be right back. All right, so we have the film loaded into the loader. If we open this up here, you're going to see our leaders sticking out. This should be shiny side up and then matte side down. You're going to take your canisters. So we'll start off with the easily reloadable canisters. You're going to open it up, pull the spool out. You're going to need some just standard Scotch tape. You're going to want a piece of Scotch tape that's going to be able to go all the way around and hit both sides here. So we're actually going to attach it here to the leader. Bring this over, try and line the leader up to where it's nice and square with the spool. You're just going to go right around and onto the back side, then go through, kind of press it down, make sure that the tape is nice and firm on there. You're going to feed it right into your canister this way. That goes in like this. That locks down. Double check that it's locked down. There's a little notch or a groove over here that your top of your spool is going to slide right into. This gate's going to close up. You're going to want to make sure that it closes nice and snug. If it's not, sometimes it misseats in there and you'll just kind of have to turn the spool. Turn it down this way and you can put your key in. So on the front of the loader here, there's a little chart that's going to show you how many exposures you're going to get depending on how many turns you do. So 13 turns, you're going to get 10 exposures. 15 turns, you're going to get 18, 24, 24, 31, 36. So simply you're going to choose where you want. I actually do about 27 turns, which I find gives me 36 exposures, so I'm not sure what I'm doing different than the 30 turns, but you're just going to go through and just count out 1, 2. So I went 27 turns. Now open it back up, take your scissors, and cut off as straight as possible. Now I'm going to show you with one of these. The nice thing about these canisters is, one, they already have the speed on there, so if they have a DX code, if you have a camera that has a DX code reader, they're already actually coded for whatever speed is on there. So if you want to bulk load a bunch of 400 speed into 400 speed canisters, you could do that and already have the DX codes, where these, you'd have to either get stickers that have DX codes on them or make them. So another reason why I like these is it's extremely simple to put in here. So I just take a piece of tape, I put it on this side first, press it down, pull the leader up, line it up with the sprockets, and then just fold the tape right over like so, press it down, and then I could start it into the canister as I push the canister back in, and again, we do our loading. And you set that one off to the side. You're going to continue that process all the way through the end. You can either bulk load all of your film at once, do all 20, 21 rolls, however many you're doing at once, or you could store this wherever you store your film, in your film fridge or anything like that. So I want to take a second to talk about these film extractors. This is a Kodak brand. This has a nice casing around it. There's other ones that are just the little tongues here, and they're just like little metal tongues that you could use. I like the one that's kind of fully enclosed, encased in here. Whenever you're going to develop your film, if you want to be able to reuse your canisters, this is the best way of going about it. So you actually pick your leader out, you load it onto your reels, and then you cut it in the dark bag. And if you cut it leaving that little bit of tail leaving out of it, you can actually use it just like we use this one to tape onto that tail. So this is a very simple process. It's kind of a tricky at first, but once you get this whole thing down, this becomes extremely simple, and allows you to really save a lot of time in the developing process, but then also in the bulk loading process. So if we take this here, this is just a roll of film that I pulled the leader in for a demonstration. The initial tongue just slides right into the canister like so. I turn this a little bit just so this doesn't bind up, and then you see you have an A and a B. The A slides right in, and then I don't know if you heard that click. I'm going to pull this up next to my mic to see if you can hear the click. There's a noticeable click, and once that click happens, you just push B in, and then you pull it just like that, and your leader comes out. Then you can trim this off, you could load it onto your Patterson reel, bring this whole thing into the dark bag, into the dark room, and then reel it onto your reel that way. You get to the end, you cut it off, and then you'll have a little canister that you can load into. Otherwise, you can go to your film lab, your Walgreens, anything like that. If any of the Rite Aids, Walgreens around you still develops film, and see if they'll just give you some of the canisters that they have that still have the leaders sticking out. And it's just an easy way of going about it. So once you have your film loaded in and you have a bunch of these lying around, there's only two things left to do. The first thing is to go in with your scissors, and we want to cut it just like the leader tails in a brand new roll of film. So if you notice on your brand new roll of film, the leader tail curves up towards your top notch. So we're actually going to pull this out, cut away from the top notch. This doesn't have to be pretty. You could kind of try and do a little curve, cut it just like that. And I like to leave at least a little more than half, especially if you're going to use these pickers. These pickers don't work really well if you try and like curve it down or anything like that. If you leave this nice big chunk for this to be able to grab onto, it'll make it much easier for you to retract it like we did a second ago. But you're just going to go through, you're going to cut your leader tails, and then I like to take standard masking tape I just write whatever film it is that I'm shooting. HP5, pull off a little piece, and then tape it on right there. And then I could store that. I know it's HP5 and it's ready to go. All right, guys, so there you have it. This is a super simple way of saving tons of money on shooting film. One of the quick things that I want to point out is if you do get one of these Lloyd tanks, I do suggest checking the felt that it's on the inside. So again, it's those two pieces of felt that wrap around on the inside and that the film actually goes through here. Check it out. Make sure that when you get it in that it's in nice condition. If you need to, you can change those out. It's super simple to get felt pads that just have some adhesive on the back. 3M makes them. And you could just cut them to size, fit them in there to make sure that everything is light, tight, and just sealed up really nice in there. But again, I absolutely love this film loader. It makes it super simple. As you've seen, it's just turning, it's just feeding, it's just, there's no opening a gate, there's no closing the gate, there's no worrying about your film getting exposed or anything like that. So I highly suggest the Lloyd's Daylight Tank and highly suggest just bulk loading in general. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave those down below. If you're new or visiting to the channel, I'd love to have you check out some of the other videos. I have how to make camera straps, how to leather belts, how to make zines, how to thrift store shop for film cameras, all sorts of stuff. I also have tons and tons and tons of creative process and creative vision stuff over on the channel as well. So go check that out, like and subscribe down below. I look forward to hearing you guys' just comments on this stuff. Have you bulk loaded in the past, and what's your favorite film to bulk load? Mine's HP5. I just got done bulk loading a bunch of Kentmere, just shot through all that. I'm going to be making a video coming up soon talking about what about Kentmere that I liked, what about it I didn't like, and why I went back to HP5 moving forward. So I hope to see you guys over on the future videos and in the comments down below. Otherwise, go pick up some bulk film and start loading for yourself and saving tons of money. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.